Hebrews 11:1, and it goes as follows. Now, faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. Now, we've been taking this scripture apart last time we were on, and we've seen exactly what each word is in this sentence to actually understand exactly what faith is. And as we have tore apart this sentence and figure out, okay, what is this word? What does it have to do with anything? We start to see a bigger picture of what faith is. We often hear this word faith and operating in faith, but we know now from the last conversations that this word faith came from a word called pistis, which is a root word called pithos, which just means to persuade. And so when you have faith, you have been persuaded. Hebrews 11:1 expounds on what this persuasion looks like. And so we have talked about the first component or the element that makes up faith, this persuasion that God does. And so the first component was just that there's a guaranteed agreement that God has in there. And as we looked at Abraham's story, he was talking about all the stuff that he's going to do for Abraham. I'm going to bless you. I'm going to make you a great nation. I'm going to make your name great. These are all the guarantees that God was giving Abram. And there's some guarantees that he's giving us, right? That we are actively waiting for God to fulfill, that hope for. So we know that, hey, if we do what he asks us to do, there's an agreement in there. And that agreement is whatever he has said. And then these are the things that are going to come. Now, the second component that makes up God's persuasion, this overall conversation, which is the evidence of things not seen. Now, you may have the word conviction. I know some translations have the conviction. And evidence comes from a word called electros. They get this word electros from elecho, which is where they get the fact of you're convincing with some solid evidence, compelling evidence. And we need to know this because it allows us to see something that we can testify as true. Now, when we look at this word even more, you would probably see this in commentaries and study notes about this inner conviction where that's focused on God's confirming basically what he has persuaded you on, right? So it's not just I'm going to persuade you, but there's I guess in the human terms, we use this word, it's a click or the light bulb cuts on, or it's a switch that happens. And it happens to everybody where whatever somebody is telling you, right? It's like, oh, wow, that's true. So there is a moment where God just doesn't talk to us, but eventually it clicks. And when you get this evidence, right? This moment where it's boom, it changes everything. And so we do know the first part of this persuasive conversation is that there is going to be proof in the conversation. Okay. And then the question is, well, what is the proof? What is this compelling evidence that God is giving us when we start to think about this conversation that God's persuading us that we call faith? And that brings us to our next word, pragmaton. And this word is what they call things, but it's defined a little bit more as deeds or matters. And when we think about things or deeds or matter, sometimes it gets kind of weird because I don't know if you use the word things. It's like, oh, there's something or these things or that thing. If you don't pay attention to it too much, it's like, well, what is the thing? What is the matter? They defined it from a root word called prosos. And prosos means basically an active process in performing or accomplishing a deed. So it's not just a thing, but it's the way that you're going to perform it. And that is you're starting to see that a light bulb is going to cut on in our head, right? This proof, this compelling evidence that if I do this, there's something that clicks that says, well, if I do it, this is proof that if I do it, whatever that process is, that whatever I need to perform, this is going to take us to the last two words of the sentence, which is not seen. And so obviously the word not is not, so we don't have to worry about that too much. We know not is not. But seen, blepoman, it does mean to look or to observe or to watch. Some even, commentaries and special notes suggest to see something physical with spiritual results, basically a perception. So before we go into the scripture, which we will, we need to know that the part that we talked about right now is that the second part that makes up this element called God's persuasion, faith, is the fact of having basically solid evidence, right? That if I do an action, it will take me to a place to get to where I need to be at, even though I'm not there yet. We're gonna look at it again in Abraham's case about what was the compelling evidence, right, that was given to Abram, which we know is Abraham, that if he did it, he would obtain what God was guaranteeing him at that time. So again, Genesis chapter 12, verses 1 through 3. And it goes like we have read before. Now the Lord has said to Abram, get out of your country, from your family, and from your father's house, to a land that I will show you. I will make you a great nation. I will bless you and make your name great, and you shall be a blessing. I will bless those who bless you, and I will curse him who curses you, and in you all the families of the earth shall be blessed. We talked about that whole conversation again being God's persuasion. And last time we talked about the fact of all the eyes that he was saying, a land that I will show you. That was one of the guarantees that he was giving him. I'll make you a great nation. I will bless you. I'll make your name great. All these were just guarantees that he was going to give him. That was part of the persuasive conversation. Today we're going to look at the proof, what we will call the conviction or the evidence of things that's going to lead him to the not seen. Where is that in this scripture? If you look at the first verse, you will see it's right there. He gives him a clear instruction. What is that clear instruction that he gave him? Get out of your country, from your family, and from your father's house. That's it. And if you do this, right, I'm going to do all the other guarantees that you are seeing. And so something has to click at that point, right? With us, and it definitely clicked with Abram. Is the moment where you hear the instruction, right? The instruction is the proof. It is the conviction, right? That this is what's going to be needed in order to get everything else. And it's really simple sometimes, probably so simple. And in this case, in order to achieve what was guaranteed to Abram and written for Abram's life, all he had to do was this one thing to get this ball started. And that was get out of your country, from your father and from your father's house. And then he tells him about to a land that I'm going to show you. But the conviction was that he had to go. The proof was, hey, if you go, I'm going to take you to some place, even though right now you're not seeing it. I'm going to do all this other stuff that right now you're not seeing, but you have to do this. It had to click for him. And boom. Now we talk about Abraham all the time. We see the fulfillment. And so I don't want to go on any further because this is enough. But there is compelling evidence of something to do in whatever God's persuading us on in order to get us to a place of all these guarantees. But in this case, Abram's do, or Abram's action that was required for him was to get out. And it hit him that if he did it, he was going to get everything else. And it's the same way now in 2000 and, whatever year that we're in. That if we do this, it's going to take us to where we see. to all those guarantees that we've already heard about. But we do need to know that that is an element of God's conversation, God's persuasion that he's having with us. You see. All right. Love you all. Hey, before you go, I just want to give a quick shout out to Biblehub. This is a resource that we use in order to get our content. We are not sponsored by Biblehub, but I did want to go ahead and shout them out because I am grateful for this resource that God gave us.